Hello students, I am Dr. Prahlad and I welcome you all to today's lecture, and we have already completed 3 units, and today we will be starting the 4th unit, that is laser and fiber optics. And in this unit we are going to cover interaction of radiation of matter, and we are going to look into the quantum mechanical view, and we'll also be discussing about the Einstein coefficients, which is very much important from the perspective of lasers, and then spontaneous and stimulated emissions, optical amplification and population inversion. We'll also be discussing about metastable state and the very important component of a laser, that is the optical resonator, the principle of pumping scheme, laser beam characteristics, and we'll also be discussing the construction and the working of two important lasers, that is ruby laser and helium neon lasers. And we'll also be talking about few of the applications, and then we'll finally be moving to the fiber optics part. Okay, so I'll be covering the initial few topics today, and let's start. Okay, now as we all know, laser stands for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, and I'm sure all of must be aware about the amazing qualities of the laser beam, and there are innumerable examples which amazes, like which does not fail to create curiosity and amazement in our minds. And I won't take you very far away. Let's take the example of the Akshardham temple laser show. As you can see in this picture, like I'm sure you must have all visited this temple and have seen the laser show, and as you can see, like this is one of the best shows in the world. And okay, starting with this, let's move ahead. Okay, now before we start our discussions on the working of the laser, it is very important to understand the concept of interaction of radiation with matter. And now we will be treating this interaction quantum mechanically, and the first thing that comes is the idea of stimulated absorption or simply absorption. Fine. As you can see here is we have a charged particle, and this photon is incident on it, and upon absorbing the photon, the charged particle, it gets excited to a higher energy state. And this will be more clear if we consider this energy level diagram, in which this is my lower level, say 1, and this is my higher level 2. Now let E1 and N1 be the energy and population respectively at for this level 1, and let E2 and N2 be the energy and population for level 2, that is the higher state. Now once the photon is absorbed by the atom, it gets excited to the higher energy state. Now this energy of the photon is, absorbed photon is given by the difference of the two energy levels, that is E2 minus E1. Now if I have my atom initially A, then upon absorbing a photon of frequency nu, that is it absorbs an energy of h nu, it gets excited, and finally it is A star, which is the excited state. Now the number of such absorption transitions occurring in a material during a very short interval of time, delta t, is given by my what? N absorption, which is proportional to my population at the lower energy level from where absorption starts, and it is also proportional to the energy density u omega, or it is sometimes also known as my q, and delta t, of course. Fine. Now this, in order to remove the proportionality sign, so we introduce a constant, which in my case, in this case, is B12. B12 is the constant of proportionality, because the absorption is taking from 1 to 2, that's why it is B12. So B12 is the constant of proportionality, Q or U omega is the spectral energy density, and N1 is the number of atoms in the state E1, or the population in the state E1. Fine. So I hope this is clear. So this is very important, because without understanding this, there is no point in discussing about the working principle of laser. Fine. Okay. So after discussing about stimulated absorption or absorption, we need to understand what is emission. Now when we talk about emission, so there are two types of emission. First one is the spontaneous emission. Now let's look at this, like emission will take place from an excited state to a lower state. Now this atom is in its excited state, and while it is getting de-excited, so it is emitting radiation which is equal to the energy level difference between the higher and the lower level. Fine. Now when this emission is taking place, a photon is emitted. So this will again be more clear if you look into the energy level diagrams, and as you can see, the photon is getting de-excited, or we say that emission, during this emission process, and it is initially at the excited state, and then upon giving up this photon, it comes down to the lower state, that is A here, and again the energy of the emitted photon is given by E2 minus E1. Fine. And we call this spontaneous because no stimulating photon is required for this process to take place. So it takes place spontaneously. So that is why it is known as spontaneous emission. Now again, the number of spontaneous transitions occurring in the material during a very small interval of time, delta t, so in this case NSP we call, is proportional to the population in this level. The initially it was in this level, right? So it is population in this level times delta t. Now again this proportionality sign is removed by introducing a constant, and my constant of proportionality in this case is my A21, because it is transition is taking from level 2 to level 1. So where A21 is constant of proportionality and N2 is the number density of atoms in the energy state E2, which is my excited state. Fine. Okay. Okay. So the second type of emission is the stimulated emission, and this stimulated emission is the most important process from the laser point of view. Now in this process what happens is, stimulating photon, it induces the emission process by stimulating the atom in the higher energy state to de-excite to the lower energy state. So what happens is, the photon, it reaches here, and the atom, it gets de-excited to this lower energy state, and in this process what happens, like from the energy level diagram you can see, this is the incident photon, and this, upon being incident on this photon, on this atom, excited atom, it gets de-excited, that is, there is an emission process taking place, and in the process we have two photons, the incident one and the one due to the emission. So finally we have two photons. So from this equation you can see A star was in the excited state, and upon taking the energy of the photon, it gets de-excited, there is an emission taking place, and finally we have two photons coming up in the process. Now the number of stimulated transitions, that is NST, occurring in the material during this small interval of time delta t is given by my what? It is given by NST is proportional to N2, that is my population in the higher energy level, into U omega, which is my spectral energy density, and delta t is of course there. Now again the constant of proportionality in this case is B21. So transition is taking place from 2 to 1. So where B21 is my constant of proportionality. Okay, fine. Let's note some of the salient features of the stimulated emission. And the emitted photon is identical to the incident photon in all respect. So the second photon that we are getting is identical to the incident photon in all respect. It will also be in phase with the incident photon, and the process is controllable from outside. That is why we can play and finally get a very intense laser output. And the most important feature is multiplication of photons taking place in this process. As you can see here, initially we had one photon, then we got, after emission we got two photons. Now if we had two photons, then we get four, and so on and so forth. The common frequency and common phase produce an intense coherent light beam, because all these photons that I have, they are all in phase and they are coherent. So that's why we get a very intense light beam. Okay. Now comes the important topic of the main components of the laser. In fact, there are many different components associated with a laser system, but then there are three major components. What are they? They are the active medium, the pumping source, and then we have the optical resonator. Fine. Now in the figure you can see there are three basic components of the laser. As you can see, this is my active medium which provides the amplification. Fine. Okay, this is my active medium, and then I have the optical resonator, so which consists of a set of mirrors, one of which is 100% reflecting, and the other one is a semi-transparent mirror whose reflectivity is around 90%. Fine. So that forms the optical cavity which provides the frequency selection and also the optical feedback. Okay. And then the third component is the pump. So this is the pump. So this supplies power to the active medium to achieve population inversion. Now what is this population inversion? So as you can see, stimulated emission, the emission takes place like from the higher energy state to the lower energy state. Fine. So for that we need to have more number of atoms in the higher energy state. So that condition is known as my population inversion. We'll come to that in more details later, but these are the main components of the general laser system. So any type of laser you may take, so we'll definitely have these three components. It will always have an active medium, it will have an optical resonator, and then of course the pump. Fine. Okay, very good. Now coming to the first component, that is the active medium. The active medium consists of a collection of atoms, molecules or ions which may be in solid, liquid or gaseous form, and this is capable of amplifying light waves. So the atoms that we were talking about in the lower and higher state, so these atoms are basically part of my active medium. And under normal circumstances, there are always a large number of atoms in the lower energy state than in the excited state. Obviously you have more number of atoms in the lower energy state in normal circumstances. Now in order to have optical amplifications, the medium has to be kept in a state of population inversion, as I mentioned. Now what is this? In the state of population inversion, the number of atoms in the upper energy level is greater than that in lower energy state. This is achieved by means of the pump. So we need to have the condition of population inversion in the active medium, and for that, so there has to be continuous pumping in the active medium. So that is done by the pump that we saw in the last slide. Fine. So that's why population inversion is a must in order to have the lasing action. Okay. Now let us talk about the population in different levels, and then how is it related to the thermal equilibrium of the atoms. Now the number of active atoms occupying an energy state is called the population of that state. Fine, that is okay. Now thus N1 and N2 are the populations of lower level E1 and upper level E2 energy levels respectively. Fine, N1 has E1 and N2 for E2. Now in a state of thermal equilibrium, what really happens? In a state of thermal equilibrium, the population of energy levels E2 and E1 are fixed by the Boltzmann factor. What is this? I am sure you have studied this in your class 11 and 12th while studying the topics of thermal physics. Now let us use those here. The population ratio is given by what? It is given by N1 by N2, which is my ratio of the two populations in the two levels, is equal to e to the power E2 minus E1 by kBt. This whole term E2 minus E1 by kBt is in the exponential, is the exponential term. Fine. So we can also write this as e to the power h cross omega by kBt. Where did this h cross omega come from? Because E2 minus E1 is h nu, as we saw in the previous slides, and then h cross is what? H by 2 pi, and omega is 2 pi nu. So 2 pi gets cancelled, and what we have is, so h cross omega by kBt. Now the positive exponent in the equation suggests that N2 is much less than N1 in the normal state. Okay. In order to maintain N1 and N2 constant, the number of upward transition must be equal to the number of downward transitions. That is okay. So in order to maintain N1 and N2 constant, so for that what we need to have is, we need to have the number of transitions from lower to upper, that is my absorption AB, NAB should be equal to my total emission taking place from 2 to 1. So this absorption is from 1 to 2, and this emission, both spontaneous as well as stimulated, is from 2 to 1. Now from the previous slides we can write NAB as B12 N1 U omega. Delta T was of course there, but since we have delta T in all the three factors, so we can cancel it. And on the right hand side we have NSP. For NSP we can write A21 N2. For spontaneous we are using A, and plus B21 N2 U omega. So let us mark these equations as, this one is equation 2 and this one as equation 3. Now this relation was predicted by whom? This was predicted by none other than Einstein way back in the early 20th century. Fine. And the coefficients A21, B12 and B21 are hence called the Einstein coefficients. Fine. So these are known as my Einstein coefficients, very famously known as. Fine. And from this what we can do is, we can evaluate U omega as a function of omega. So this is energy spectral density, and this is, if you take this on the left hand side, so we have U omega is equal to A21 divided by N1 by N2 into B12 minus B21. Okay. So let us call this as equation number 4. Okay. Now as already mentioned in the last to last slide, so we had written as, from the thermal equilibrium point of view, we had under normal conditions we had N1 by N2 is equal to e to the power E2 minus E1 by kBt, or e to the power h cross omega by kBt, where kb was what? Kb was the Boltzmann constant, and the value of Boltzmann constant is 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23 joule per Kelvin, and T represents what? The T represents the absolute temperature. Now, from the previous slide, we saw that U omega is equal to A21 by B12 N1 by N2. So instead of N1, in place of N1 by N2, we can write it as e to the power h cross omega by kBt and minus B21, right? So let us mark this as equation number 6. Now, what happens at the thermal equilibrium? Now we know from Planck's radiation law that the radiation energy density is given by U omega is equal to h cross omega cube n naught cube by pi square c cube into 1 by e to the power h cross omega by kBt minus 1. So this is from the famous Planck's law that we studied in class 11th and 12th, right? And what is this n naught here? The n naught is it represents the refractive index of the medium. Medium, it is of the active medium that we have. So this is under thermal equilibrium. So let us mark this as equation number 7. Okay. Okay, now before we stop for now, let us have a quick recap of whatever we have covered in this lecture. And so far we have covered stimulated absorption, spontaneous emission and stimulated emission, fine? Stimulated absorption or simply absorption. So absorption is always stimulated. And we have also discussed about the population of different energy levels and the conditions of thermal equilibrium. And we have introduced the Einstein coefficients, and we also saw how they are related to each other and the conditions of thermal equilibrium. And we will proceed from this in the next class, and we will see how population inversion actually takes place, and the various pumping sources, etc. And we'll also discuss a few laser systems. Fine. Okay, thank you.